You think sociology is just about theories, classrooms, textbooks? Think again. This field doesn't just study society. It reveals its deepest lies, manipulations, and control mechanisms, from who holds the power to why you behave the way you do without even realizing it. Sociology is the invisible hand shaping your choices, your beliefs, your identity, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Sociology. For many, it sounds like just another academic subject, something abstract, maybe even boring. You might picture chalkboards, dry lectures, or dusty textbooks filled with terms like social structures and cultural norms. But what if I told you that sociology isn't just a subject? It's a lens that can expose the invisible architecture of your life. From the moment you're born, society starts writing your script. Not just your language or your clothes, but your values, your fears, your desires. And the scariest part, you never signed up for it. This is what sociologists call the silent curriculum, the unspoken rules you learn just by existing within a system. You're taught how to behave, what to dream about, and even who to love, without anyone ever saying it out loud. Think about it. Why is a man in a suit respected, while a man in rags is ignored or feared? Why do certain accents carry more authority than others? Why are some professions praised and others mocked, even if they're equally important? These aren't just coincidences, they're constructed beliefs, handed to us by the social world we grow up in. And sociology rips off the mask. It doesn't stop at family or school. The media you consume, the jokes you laugh at, the celebrities you idolize, they all form part of a complex web of social influence. They teach you what is normal, what is deviant, and where you supposedly fit in that spectrum. And here's the catch. If you don't question it, you end up living someone else's definition of who you should be. Sociology dares to ask, who benefits from these rules? Who wrote them? And who gets crushed when they're enforced? It looks behind the curtain and shows you that society is not a neutral place. It's a battlefield of power, privilege, and control. But here's why sociology is dangerous. Once you start to see these patterns, you can't go back. You start noticing how the justice system doesn't treat everyone equally, how beauty standards are designed to exclude entire groups of people, how education can be more about obedience than enlightenment. It's unsettling, even painful, but it's also liberating, because only when you understand the rules of the game can you begin to change them. So no, sociology isn't just about studying people, it's about uncovering the operating system of the world you live in and deciding whether you still want to play by its rules. Welcome to the beginning of the most dangerous subject you've never understood. You think you're in control of your life, that your choices, what to wear, what to study, who to marry, what to believe, come from you. But what if they don't? What if those choices are just illusions crafted by invisible forces, pulling strings you can't even see? This is where sociology becomes deeply unsettling, because one of its core truths is this: you are a product of your environment far more than you realize. Your race, your gender, your class, the country you were born in, each one of those factors silently shapes your opportunities, your decisions, your dreams. Not with chains or laws, but with expectations. Take something simple, the clothes you wear. Are they you, or are they the result of trends fed to you by companies, magazines, influencers, or your career? Did you freely choose it, or did school systems, economic pressures, and family values gradually nudge you toward it? Sociologists call this socialization, the lifelong process through which society molds you. You're rewarded when you conform, punished, mocked, or isolated when you don't. And eventually you stop noticing it. You start calling it common sense. But who defines what's common? Power does. Institutions do. Culture does. And power hates to be questioned. In a world driven by profit and image, Sociology exposes how much of your identity is manufactured to serve something else. Your consumption habits, shaped by advertising. Your fears, shaped by media. Your morality, often shaped by tradition or religion, passed down without challenge. That doesn't mean your choices aren't real, but they're rarely free. Now ask yourself, why are some neighborhoods more policed than others? Why are certain hair types considered professional and others not? Why are women expected to smile more? These aren't personal preferences, they're social constructs, and they carry real consequences. And once you start seeing them, you can't look at the world the same way again. You'll notice how job interviews favor a certain accent, how corporate boards are filled with people who all look the same, how even language is rigged, how ambitious means something different for a man than for a woman, how thug and troubled youth can mean the same thing, depending on the skin color of who's being described. Sociology arms you with the vocabulary to name injustice, and naming something gives you power over it. That's why some fear this discipline. It doesn't just explain the world, it questions who built it. The danger isn't in sociology itself, it's in what happens when you finally start to see clearly. What do you think is normal? Eating 3 meals a day, getting married by 30, working 5 days a week until you're 65? Here's the truth. Normal is one of the most powerful tools of control ever invented. And sociology dares to ask, normal for whom? The idea of normal isn't neutral. It's a filter used to sort, to separate, and to silence. When you tell someone they're not normal, what you really mean is you don't fit the mold society told me was acceptable. But who created that mold? Who benefits when you follow it? Let's go back in time. The nuclear family, mom, dad, 2 kids, is seen as the standard. But historically, that model only emerged in specific Western societies after World War II. Before that, families looked very different around the globe. And even now, most don't fit that template. Yet media, governments, and schools continue to push it as the ideal. Why? Because norms make people predictable, and predictable people are easier to manage, market to, and manipulate. That's why sociology doesn't just study norms, it exposes who enforces them and why. Consider gender roles. Why are boys discouraged from crying? Why are women criticized for being too assertive? It's not about biology, it's about control. When you can make half the population believe they must act a certain way or face rejection, you've just written a rule book for obedience. And the punishment for breaking norms isn't always written into law, it's social. Shame, ridicule, isolation. That's why many of us stay silent when we want to speak out, why we laugh at jokes we find offensive, why we follow paths we hate, just to avoid being labeled different. Even success has been normalized. You're told there's a single path: school, career, house, marriage, retirement. Stray from that, and people start asking, what went wrong? But maybe the real question is, who decided that's the only way to live? Sociology reveals that many truths are just social agreements, agreed upon by those in power, and passed down until they feel inevitable. But they're not. They can be challenged, rewritten, reimagined. And that's what makes sociology dangerous. It gives people permission to imagine other ways of living, other definitions of success, other identities, values, and ways of being. It dismantles the myth that there is only one right way to be human. So the next time someone tells you to just be normal, you'll know to ask, who's normal and at what cost? We live in a world obsessed with individuality. Be yourself. Follow your dreams. You can be anything you want. But what if that's the biggest lie we've been sold? Sociology challenges the sacred idea that you are a completely independent, self-made individual, not to take away your agency, but to expose how deeply your life is intertwined with structures far bigger than you. And once you understand this, you'll see why the system prefers you to believe otherwise. Because if everything is your choice, your fault, your responsibility, Then when you fail, society gets to wash its hands clean. Didn't get that job? You must not have worked hard enough. Struggling with rent? Budget better? Discriminated against? Maybe you're too sensitive. This is called individual blame, and it's a powerful tool to hide collective injustice. Sociology flips the script. It asks, what if you didn't get that job because you have an ethnic-sounding name? What if your rent is unaffordable because wages are stagnant and housing is hoarded by investors? What if your pain isn't personal, but political? The myth of the individual thrives in capitalist cultures. It convinces people that success is solely about effort, grit, and ambition, that poor people are lazy, that rich people are brilliant, that systems don't matter, but they do. Where you're born, your race, gender, zip code, school district, these factors influence your trajectory more than talent ever will. Sociological studies prove this again and again, and yet we keep pretending that the playing field is fair. Why? Because blaming individuals is easier than reforming systems. If everyone starts questioning the system, the people who benefit from it have something to lose. That's why sociology is dangerous. It forces you to confront the structures that control opportunity. It shows that poverty isn't just about bad decisions, it's about barriers. Racism isn't just about hateful people, it's about institutional policies. And identity isn't just a personal choice. It's shaped by how others see you, treat you, and value you. This doesn't mean you're powerless. On the contrary, it means you are not alone, and that your struggle is shared by others who've been told the same lie. When people realize their pain is part of a pattern, they start organizing, protesting, demanding change. That's when sociology stops being an academic subject and becomes a weapon for liberation. Because if you're suffering and they've convinced you it's all your fault, you'll stay quiet. But if you realize the game is rigged, you might just flip the table. By now, you've probably realized something. Sociology isn't just a mirror, it's a spotlight. It doesn't just reflect your world, it interrogates it. And that makes people uncomfortable, especially those in power. Because once you start seeing how society is built, once you understand that many of its rules are written not for fairness but for control, you reach a point of no return. You begin to question everything. Why are things the way they are? Who wrote the rules? And most dangerously, what if we could change them? That's when sociology becomes more than dangerous. It becomes revolutionary. This awakening often comes in waves. At first, it's personal. You notice how your own identity, your choices, your struggles are all tied to structures. Then it becomes collective. You recognize that others around you, people of different races, genders, classes, are battling the same invisible forces. And then comes the fire, outrage. Not mindless rage, not chaos, but righteous, informed, focused resistance. It's why so many movements throughout history, civil rights, feminism, labor unions, LGBTQ+ rights, decolonization, have leaned heavily on sociological insights. Because sociology doesn't just tell you what's wrong, it helps you imagine what's possible. And that threatens every institution built on the lie that this is just how things are. But here's the paradox. Society needs people who ask dangerous questions. Because silence never changed the world. Because acceptance of injustice only preserves it. The more you understand sociology, the more you see how connected everything is. Education, politics, media, religion, justice. None of them operate in isolation. They are woven together to create a worldview. Sociology pulls the thread, and suddenly the whole fabric starts to unravel. And that's terrifying, but also beautiful. Because in that unraveling, there's space to weave something new. You begin to replace helplessness with action, ignorance with awareness, judgment with empathy. You stop asking, why don't people just work harder? And start asking, what systems keep certain people stuck, no matter how hard they work? You stop blaming individuals and start demanding accountability from the structures that shape them. So what will you do with this new lens? Will you go back to sleep, comforted by the lie that everything is fine? Or will you wake up and look around with eyes wide open? Sociology isn't about having the answers. It's about learning to ask the questions that truly matter, the questions that disturb the peace, so justice can finally speak. Sociology isn't just a subject. It's a tool to wake up, speak up, and tear down the lies that keep us silent. Now that you've seen the truth, what will you do with it? Comment below. What's one social norm you'll never see the same way again? Subscribe for more truth they don't teach in school. Share this with someone who still thinks sociology is just theory.